The Battle of Stalingrad, turning point of World War II. Winter 1942. The temperature has plummeted to -40 degrees Celsius. In the ruins of what was once a thriving industrial city on the Volga River, 2 million men are locked in the most brutal battle humanity has ever witnessed. The streets have become graveyards. Factories are fortresses, and every building, every room, every staircase is contested in hand-to-hand combat.
This is the Battle of Stalingrad, and today we're diving deep into the siege that changed the course of World War II, broke the myth of Nazi invincibility, and cost over 2 million lives. I'm your host, and this is Echoes of History. Over the next half hour, we'll explore how this battle became the turning point of the Eastern Front. We'll walk through the streets where soldiers fought for every meter. We'll hear about the civilians trapped in this inferno. We'll examine the tactics, the leadership decisions, and the human cost of this epic confrontation. Because Stalingrad wasn't just a battle, it was a watershed moment in human history. It was the place where Hitler's dreams of empire began to crumble, where the Soviet Union proved it could not only survive, but fight back, and where ordinary people, caught between two totalitarian juggernauts, paid the ultimate price. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Road to Stalingrad. To understand why Stalingrad became the defining battle of the Eastern Front, we need to rewind to the summer of 1942. But actually, let's go back even further, to June 22nd, 1941. That's when Operation Barbarossa began, Hitler's massive invasion of the Soviet Union. It was the largest military operation in human history. Over 3 million German soldiers, supported by hundreds of thousands of troops from Romania, Hungary, Italy, and Finland, crashed across the Soviet border. The initial results were catastrophic for the Soviets. Stalin had ignored warnings about the invasion. His purges of the Red Army in the 1930s had killed many of his best generals. Soviet forces were caught completely off guard. In the first weeks, entire Soviet armies were encircled and destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers surrendered. The Luftwaffe achieved air superiority. German panzer divisions raced hundreds of kilometers into Soviet territory, leaving devastation in their wake. By autumn 1941, the Germans were approaching Moscow. Leningrad was under siege. Ukraine had fallen. It looked like the Soviet Union might actually collapse, just as Hitler had predicted it would. But then came winter, and the Soviets held. The Battle of Moscow, fought in brutal winter conditions, marked the first major German defeat of the war. Hitler's troops, unprepared for Russian winter, equipped with summer uniforms and frozen vehicles, were pushed back from the Soviet capital. For the first time, the Wehrmacht's advance had been stopped. But the war was far from over. Hitler remained confident that 1942 would be the year of final victory. However, he changed his strategy. Instead of another direct assault on Moscow, the Führer became obsessed with a different objective: oil. You see, modern warfare runs on petroleum. Tanks need fuel. Planes need fuel. The entire German war machine was constantly thirsty for oil. Germany's Romanian allies provided some, but it wasn't enough. The Caucasus region in southern Russia held vast oil fields. If Hitler could capture them, he'd fuel his armies while simultaneously denying that resource to Stalin. Operation Blue was launched in June 1942. It was a massive offensive aimed at sweeping through southern Russia, capturing the oil fields, and perhaps even pushing into the Middle East. The operation initially went well. German forces made rapid gains across the steppes. Soviet forces retreated, sometimes in good order, sometimes in chaos. By August, German troops were approaching the Caucasus Mountains. But there was a complication in Hitler's grand design. A city stood in the way. A city on the Volga River that served as a major industrial center and transportation hub. A city that bore the name of the Soviet dictator himself, Stalingrad. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Stalingrad wasn't actually the main objective of Operation Blue. It was supposed to be a secondary target, a city to be captured or neutralized, while the main German forces pushed south to the oil fields. But Hitler became fixated on it. Perhaps it was the symbolic value of capturing a city named after his rival. Perhaps it was the strategic importance of controlling the Volga River. Whatever the reason, Hitler began diverting more and more resources to the Stalingrad axis. On the Soviet side, Stalin was equally obsessed. The city bore his name. Losing it would be a massive propaganda defeat. More importantly, Stalingrad was a vital industrial center, producing a significant percentage of the Soviet Union's tanks, weapons, and ammunition. Stalin issued Order Number 227 in July 1942. Not one step backward. Soldiers who retreated without orders could be shot. Penal battalions were formed from prisoners and supposed cowards, sent on suicide missions to redeem themselves. The message was clear. Stalingrad would be held at any cost. And so, what began as a flanking maneuver in a larger campaign became an obsession for both dictators. Neither would back down. Neither could afford to lose face. Two of history's most ruthless leaders had decided that this city, this particular piece of ground, would determine the fate of the war. The stage was set for catastrophe.